Take purple. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at her. You know. 1, 2, 3. Take purple haze. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at her. You know that you don't have a chance. Though she may. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at. 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at her. You know that you don't have a chance. Though she may not be the last. You missed her. Now that she's back, you don't care. All of that is past at last. So many years are gone. I feel so old now that I'm here. So many friends are gone. I feel so lost now that I'm here. Waiting here, it's not so great to be here. But I'll be glad when I'm gone at last. Four. All alone while she. 3, 4. All alone while she goes to the dance. I've known this night since I was young. I always knew it'd be this way. Still behind and running to catch up, to be beside her years from now. I'd still be shy for all that year. Now I'm old again and I'll go out tonight. From the start I knew that things weren't right. All alone, without my love I can't do anything. I've cried a lot, can't believe I act this way tonight. I thought I wasn't scared of you. I thought that I could face you. I've known this night since I was young. I've known this night since I was young. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the lunchroom and have a smoke with all their friends. They rage against the lunchroom and complain that all the food is canned. Since there's nothing else to do, they have nothing else to do. They could be so rebellious when they use a dirty word. They even made me jealous when I was just 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their friends. They rage against the lunchroom and complain that all the food is canned. Since it's the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and complain. 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their friends. They rage against the lunchroom and complain that all the food is canned since there's nothing else to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their friends. They rage against the lunchroom and complain that all the food is canned since there's nothing else to do. They have nothing else to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system. 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system. 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system. 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their 1, 2, 3, 4. They rage against the system and have a smoke with all their friends. They rage against the lunchroom and complain that all the food is canned since there's nothing else to do. They have nothing else to do. They can be so rebellious when they use a dirty word. They even made me jealous when I was just a nerd. I want to rebel with you guys if you just let me inside. Since there's nothing else to do, I have nothing else to do. I feel I'm living in a zoo. That's what I think. How about you? I feel like I'm living in the zoo. 3, 4, 5. You're shocked when I call, 'cause you think I'm gone, and then you've got all excuses to make sure I'm gone, because I did the same thing to you. I don't want to deal with it anymore. We're so different so fast, and I never caught on. It bothers me that there is such a thing as too late, as too late, as too late. We'll never be friends, please forgive me for saying it. I'm not against you, I know time never heals the same. There is such a thing, is such a thing as too late, as too late. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. Well, it's always good to wait for the one you love. To wait for. It's good. It's good. It's always good. 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are things we have to work out. 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we have to work out. 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. Well, it's always good to wait for the one you love. To wait, 2, 3, wait, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. 2, 3, 4. There, 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are. 3, 4. There's 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we've gotta work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we have to work out. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. Well, it's always good to wait for the one that you love. Oh yeah. And to wait for them. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. I think you're the love of my life. I think you are the love. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things we've gotta work. 2, 3, 4. There are things we've gotta work out. There are things
The day is May 14th, 1989. The first story I'm about to tell is called Hadley. As Peter Hadley came to his house from the exhausting day at the banking office that he worked at, he was awfully hungry since he hadn't had lunch that afternoon. When he walked into the apartment, his brother's body was laying in the kitchen with a knife in his chest. Peter was tired and sweaty and went outside to get some fresh air and started walking to the neighbors. "What do you want?" said a bad-tempered lady with blonde hair and a scarf around her neck. "I want to speak to Bob." "You can't see him right now. All I know is that he's with a man named Greg." "What Greg?" asked Peter. "Look," said the woman, "I'm only a housekeeper. I don't know anything about it." "Then I'll wait," was Peter's reply. An hour had passed before Bob came into the room while Greg left. "Who was he?" Peter asked when Bob came into the room. "Oh, it was just a real estate man," said Bob. "How long were you talking to him?" asked Peter. "About 5 minutes before he came." "Well, what do you want?" asked Bob. "Mike's been murdered." "Oh my God, how was he murdered?" "He was stabbed in the chest with a knife." "Look, I need to know where Ben, your brother, is," Peter asked Bob. "He's in Montreal," was Bob's reply. Peter rang Bob's apartment door. Bob opened the door. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm a friend of your brother," said Peter. "Come on in," he said. "What do you want?" he asked. "Ben, I want you to help me solve a case." "I can't. Gotta write a book." "It's a homicide," said Peter. "Who was murdered then?" asked Ben. "My brother Mike." "Did you get any calls before he was murdered?" "Why?" asked Peter. "'Cause I was a detective once, but I quit." "Why did you become a detective?" asked Peter. "Well, I liked mysteries when I was 21, and I decided I wanted to be a detective." "But do you think you can help me?" "Okay," Bob replied. "Do you know anyone by the name of Greg?" asked Peter. "No, I don't think so," said Ben. "When Mike was murdered, the house cleaner said Bob was talking to him," said Peter. "He said it was some kind of real estate man." "I know the company where he works," said Ben. "Could you show me it?" asked Peter. "Of course," was Ben's reply. When they got to the company, Ben suggested that Peter should wait in the car while Ben would go inside and see if he worked there. Peter waited a half an hour before Ben came back. When Ben got back, he said Greg wasn't working there anymore. "But why did Bob lie to me?" asked Peter. "I don't know," said Ben. When they got to Ben's room, the telephone was ringing. "Hello?" said Peter. "Hello, Peter?" asked Bob. "Yes." "Police found Mike. They think you did it. I think you better get over here or they'll find you." "Okay," said Peter. Peter hung up. "What's wrong?" asked Ben. "Police want me for questioning." "They think you did it?" "Yes, I did do it." "You didn't do it. There's no proof." "Okay, I lied," said Peter. "People are going to think I did, and that's why I'm in a bad mood." "You know," said Peter, "I got a call from Mike, and he said he was going to a party at Latham's house when I was at the bank." "I know Latham," said Ben. "Does Bob?" asked Peter. "No," said Ben. "But we've got to get Bob's house before the policemen find us instead," said Ben. When they got there, Ben and Peter went into Bob's house, and they saw 2 detectives. "Sit down," they said. "What time was your brother's murder?" asked one detective. Peter did not answer. "We think you did it," said another detective, "so you better start answering." "He won't say anything," said a detective. "Just let him go." When Ben and Peter got to the car, Peter was quiet through the whole ride. When they got to Ben's room, Peter was tired. An hour later, Peter said that he wanted to know if Latham had the party. Ben called him. "That's weird," Ben said after he hung up. "Latham didn't know anything about it," said Ben. "That explains it," said Peter. "Mike killed himself." "What do you mean?" asked Ben. "Bob couldn't have done it because he set Mike up. He couldn't have set Mike up because he didn't know Latham. You couldn't because you were 100 miles away." "But of course. Why didn't I think of that?" said Ben. "It was suicide." The next story is called Hadley Ii. Hadley was outside when the telephone rang. "Who is this?" asked Hadley. "It's Bob. Come over here right away. There's a man at my door and I don't know who he is." "I'll be all right over," said Hadley. He saw a man at the door. "Hello, do you know if this is a man by the name of Bob Grover lives here?" asked the man. "It is his house, isn't it?" "Yes," said Hadley. "I'm asking all the neighbors if they want to join a club. Do you want to join the band club?" "What is the band club?" "I mean, what do you do there?" asked Hadley. "You play in a band, of course. It is quite popular," said the man. "Yes," said Hadley. "I'll join." "Okay, I'll need your address," said the man. "That's very far from here," said the man after Hadley gave him his address. "Well, I'm moving today," said Hadley. "Oh, is that right?" said the man. "Hey, you're the famous mystery writer, aren't you?" "Yes," said Hadley. Bob saw the two men talking. He opened the door. "Oh, Mr. Grover, I presume," said the man. "Yes, who are you?" asked Bob. "I want to know if you want to join the band club." Hadley started to walk away. "Where are you going?" asked Bob Grover. "I'm moving today," said Hadley. "Oh, yeah," said Bob. "I'll write to you and tell what it's like," said Peter Hadley. The traffic was thick, and Hadley didn't know if his moving truck was going to get through all the traffic. It was getting late now, and the sun was setting. Peter Hadley could see lights and hear sirens. He knew he had to look for the house he was moving into, but the house with the sirens looked almost like the real estate man's description. He decided to pull over and take a look. It was the house. He could see policemen with a stretcher and a moving truck. The policeman walked over to him. "Are you the one who's moving into this house?" "Yes," said Hadley. "We found a dead body near the house and papers were everywhere. We think it's one of the people in the family that used to live here. They moved an hour ago and one person is missing. So we think it's one of them. I'm afraid I'm going to have to arrest you for murder, Mr. Hadley." "Why? I didn't do anything." "You're the only one who could have," said the policeman. "But that's impossible. I just got here." "You could have been here an hour ago and murdered the poor guy," said the policeman. "It was a robbery," said Hadley. "Oh, no. He was assassinated, all right," said the policeman. "Now, wait a minute," said the inspector, walking to the policeman. "You can't charge this man for murder. You have no proof yet," said the inspector. "Oh, yes, Inspector. I got the man all right. Can see it in his eyes," said the policeman. "If you lay a hand on Mr. Hadley, I'll charge you for accusing a well-known mystery writer." "He could have murdered that man, but I doubt it," said the inspector. "We have lots more suspects to find," said the inspector. "Mr. Hadley, I'm sorry about my helper. My name is Jesse Hasdo, and my helper's name is Nick Kent. I'm afraid you're going to have to stay at a hotel for a couple of nights. The family that lived in the house hasn't moved all their stuff in the house that you are moving into." "Why?" "Oh, they were in town, and the moving truck got into a traffic jam and everything, you know," said Jesse Hasdo. "The moving truck can't take the stuff until the mess of paper is cleaned up," said Hasdo. Hadley checked into the hotel. Then he called the inspector. "Hello?" answered the inspector. "Hello, Inspector. I need to ask you a question." Did any of the family members that lived in the house see anyone? Ah, one man thought he saw someone running, but then he disappeared. Thanks, said Hadley. Hadley hung up. Hadley called the inspector. Hello, Inspector. I solved the case. You see, a man asked me if I wanted to join a club. I said, why not? So I joined and I gave my address where I was going to move. I got into a traffic jam, of course, and so did the other family. The club man was early, and I hadn't moved in yet. He wasn't robbing me. He was robbing someone else's stuff that wasn't moved out yet. When the family drove in, they saw a figure that disappeared into the patio. If he climbed over the wall of the patio, he would surely be seen, so he got his knife and stabbed himself. That's what the family saw, and they saw him fall to the ground. It would have been a successful robbery if the traffic jam was worse, but the family came early, and his only chance was suicide. You probably found a piece of paper with my new address on the body. Oh, yes, said Hasdo. Why, you're the best detective I've ever known, said Mr. Hasdo. The next story is called Hadley Ii. Peter Hadley was in his room when there was a knock on the door. Who is it? Peter called, who was wearing a black shirt with blue jeans. I must see you, Mr. Hadley. My name is Miss Demon. Peter Hadley opened the door. The lady walked in. Can I help you? Asked Peter. Yes, in a matter of fact you can, said the lady. Well, I want you to help me with a case. What happened? Asked Hadley. Well, I was visiting some cousins of mine, and me and my sister were staying at a house. She has blonde hair and always wears a sweater and blue jeans. When I came back, she had disappeared for days now. Couldn't have just went somewhere? Asked Peter. She's been gone for months, said Mrs. Demon. Just then there was a bang on the door. Open up, said a strong, angry voice. Hadley opened the door. I'm arresting Miss Demon for murder, said the superintendent. You can't do this to her, said Hadley. There's no proof. Lots, Mr. Hadley. We found a lady dead in our house, a lady with blonde hair and a scarf around her neck. Mr. Hadley sighed. Take her away, said the superintendent. There was a call when the superintendent left. Hello, said Peter, when he answered the phone. Hello, Peter, have you seen our housekeeper lately? She's late. No, what's her name? Asked Peter. Mrs. Dean, said Bob. Is that short for her name? I mean, is that her whole last name? Asked Peter. I don't know, said Bob. She really doesn't say much. I think she's been murdered, said Peter. See, just a few hours ago, a lady named Mrs. Demon said that her sister was gone and she had disappeared for months. Then the police came and charged her for murder of a woman who was wearing a scarf. You mean that Miss Demon and Miss Dean are sisters? Said Bob. I don't think so, said Peter. I'm getting into this case, said Peter. Can you promise me to help me to get a real strong bug spray? The next morning, Bob had the bug spray. Where are we going? Asked Bob. We're going where Mrs. Dean was murdered, said Peter. Spray the whole house, said Hadley. When Bob finished, they waited a while, and a woman came out of the house coughing. She had blonde hair and blue jeans. Mrs. Dean was not murdered, said Peter. There's our murderer, said Peter. I don't understand, said Bob. See, she tried to confuse us that it was her after she shot Miss Demon. The sister of Miss Demon put her scarf around her body. Our next story is Hadley IV. Hadley was outside when the doorbell rang. Just a minute, said Hadley. Hadley opened the door. Oh, Bob, come in, said Hadley. Thanksgiving is coming up tomorrow, and I wondered if you wanted to go to a party tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Sure, said Hadley. Well, see you tomorrow, said Bob. Hadley arrived about 3:08. Peter Hadley knocked on the door. Oh, Peter, I'm so glad to see you, said Bob. Aren't there any more guests? Asked Hadley. Oh, they're all at work, said Bob. That's odd. Yes, I thought so too, said Bob. I'm off today, I'm sure of that, asked Hadley. Where did you get those silver plates? Asked Hadley. Oh, a gift, said Bob. Well, I don't remember seeing them, said Hadley. Hadley saw a note on the table that said, Give me a pound of silver plates and I'll give you $100,000 in cash. Bob, tell me about that note on the table. It looks as if you've been up to something, said Hadley. Okay, you saw the note and I'll tell you what I want to know is to go to the house where it was sent from, said Hadley. Okay, we'll go there, said Bob. Hadley knocked on the door. Just 1 minute, said the man. Oh, come in, said the man. Hadley and Bob sat down. My name is George Tipman. Now, how can I help you? Said Mr. Tipman. Did you send this letter? Asked Hadley. The man looked at the letter. No, of course not. This letter is absurd, said the man. I'll tell what happened, said Bob Grover. I thought you didn't know anything about this, said Hadley. Does this involve the dead body found in the mountains last week in the newspaper? Asked Hadley. Yes, said Bob. No, I'll tell about it, said Mr. Tipman. Go ahead, said Hadley. The story. You see, Bob and I and another man went hiking. We found silver plates in the ground. The other man had just disappeared. A fourth man wanted to work with us, but he was at work. The man that disappeared was probably found dead in the mountains, said Mr. Tipman. Oh, by the way, what's the address of the man that disappeared? Asked Hadley. Thanks a lot, said Bob, after Tipman gave the address. The next morning, Hadley called Bob. Hello, Bob? Who is this? Asked Bob. I've solved the case and I want you to report it to the police. Go ahead and I'll write it down, said Bob. Give the police the address of the man that disappeared and tell them that they will find their murderer. But how will I prove it? Asked Bob. Tell them about your hike and about the guy who wanted to go with you, Tipman, and that man who disappeared. The fourth man didn't know anything about the silver plates. The man who disappeared spotted the fourth man coming from work. He didn't want him to know anything about the silver plates. So when the man got off work to look for you, Tipman and the man that disappeared, the man that ran away from you and Tipman, murdered him. So then he could send the note and ask for the silver plates that were on the table to make it look like he was sent from Tipman. Our next story is Hadley Ii. Peter Hadley was in the kitchen when the telephone rang. Hello, this is Eric Swanser. I'm a friend of Bob Grover, said the man. Oh yes, Bob's been telling me about you, said Peter Hadley. I want to invite you to a party, said Swanser. What time? Asked Hadley. Oh, 4:45, said Swanser. I'll be a little late, but I'll be there, said Hadley. Just to let you know, there will be Bob and 2 other people there that I think you'd like to meet, said Eric Swanser. Yes, of course, said Hadley. Hadley arrived at 5:02. Oh, Mr. Hadley, come in, said Eric. You're just in time to meet my 2 friends, Rick Wintrack and Frank Boswell. And you know Bob, of course, said Eric Swanser. Oh, Bob, can you get the chicken and the plates out of the oven and I'll get the salad, said Swanser. Oh, these are your aspirin pills, Mr. Swanser. They were on the table, said Bob. That's odd, I don't remember putting them on there, said Swanser. The meal was almost over. I don't feel so good, said Wintrack. Why don't you lay down? said Frank. Wintrek left the room. The four heard a faint noise of a door closing. "I've got to get home. It's getting late," said Hadley. "So do I," said Bob. "That's weird," said Hadley, about to walk out the door. There was an aspirin container on the floor. Hadley left. Hadley got a call the next morning. "Hello, Hadley? Wintrek is dead," said a man. "Who is this?" asked Hadley. "This is Eric. Please, come over. I'm afraid to call the police," said Eric Swampser. "I'll be right over," said Peter Hadley. "Oh, I'm so glad to see you," said Eric. "Where's the aspirin container that I saw on the floor?" asked Hadley. "Why, it's right here," said Eric Swampser. Hadley opened the refrigerator door. It sounded just like the faint door closing when Wintrek didn't feel good. "Did anything strange happen last night?" asked Hadley. "Well, Bob went to the refrigerator to get something to eat, and Boswell went to get his sweater from the bedroom. That's all," said Eric. "I want you to call Bob and Frank to come over here right away," said Hadley. "Oh, Bob and Frank, you're here. Come in," replied Hadley. Why don't we all sit on the couch?" said Hadley. "You mean that one of us is the murderer?" asked Boswell. "Yes, I'm afraid so." "I'll start with you, Boswell. What happened?" asked Hadley. "Well, first we had dinner, and then I got my coat about 8:12, and that's it," said Boswell. "Okay, Eric, what happened?" asked Hadley. "Well, I got the salad, and we had dinner, and that's it," said Eric. "What about me?" asked Bob. "I don't have to ask you," said Hadley. "You see, when you found the pills, they weren't Eric's pills. They were pills that you poisoned to kill Eric. When Wintrek didn't feel good, the faint noise of the door was the refrigerator opening and closing. Wintrek took the pills. Bob, you didn't know he took the pills. You were hoping to poison Eric. And when you came to get something to eat, you took the real pills that Eric bought and were not poison pills. You dropped them in by mistake and I found them on the ground." "The poison container was in the refrigerator," replied Peter Hadley. The next story is quite a long one and is pretty recent. It is called Presumed Dead. The enemy aircraft swirled around him with speed and fury. He looked around and saw the black sky swirl in circles and circles. He heard the loud crackling sound of a machine gun was so far away, so distant. He heard the faint sounds of his airplane roaring in extreme range, and even a short glimpse of red smoke and fire burning around him. It was almost like a dream, a strange dream that never seemed to end. For one short second, he even thought he was floating in a black, evil sky, floating but slowly falling. Slowly, he woke up. He felt strange and dizzy. His memory was blank. He suffered extreme, horrible pain that he could not explain. The sharp, bitter wind blew against him. Surrounding him was tall, snow-covered pine trees. He felt weird, throbbing pains in his head, and both legs were speckled with blood. He suddenly moved to get up, but he could not. He suddenly noticed a big black object about 300 feet away from him. He squinted his eyes, which were weak and blurry. He attempted to get up again, but the shooting pains knocked him back into the snow. He felt strange and numb. He also felt a feeling of sadness and misery, trapped in this strange, painful world. His face was scarred and rough. He lifted up his weak hand and touched his face. It had a strange, hard coldness about it. He was filled with confusion and bitterness. Slowly, he closed his eyes, and his mind settled to rest. The sun slowly arose from the horizon, shooting its bright, colorful rays. The forest was quiet and still. Dizzy and confused, he woke up. He sniffed the air. It was fresh and cool. A thrust of hope suddenly entered his heart. It was a thrust that meant he was going to survive, that he was going to live, and that he was going to make it. Way deep inside, he knew there was hope. There had to be. He knew he had to move on in order to survive and find food. So slowly he moved along, his fingers digging into the thick snow, pulling his limp and weak body along. He really didn't know where he was going, except that he was heading towards a strange black object. As he got closer and closer to it, more details appeared. Finally, he reached it. He really could not figure out what it was because he was laying on the ground. After many attempts to get up, he lay still on the ground, staring into the gray sky. The flight commander approached the large blue house on the corner. Then he came to the door and knocked. A small woman in her late 40s answered the door. She wore a black shirt and blue jeans. "Hello, are you Miss Kearns?" "Yes. Who are you?" she asked, giving him a suspicious look. "I'm the flight commander for the Jenks Air Force Base. Your husband's boss." She paused and then said, "Yes, come in and sit down." The commander sat down. "Mrs. Kearns, I'm very sorry." He paused and swallowed and then said, "I'm afraid your husband was shot down by 3 Russian planes 2 days ago. We just got the news last night at 11 o'clock. Her kind, gentle face turned red, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "We tried to find him, but we haven't found him yet. He was shot down behind enemy lines. I'm so sorry, Miss Kearns." The next morning he woke up as the sun arose from the horizon. He wondered where he could find any food, but it was that morning that he realized what the big black object in front of him was. The crushed, shattered glass among the debris was from the cockpit of a plane. He looked the plane over and he was able to stand up a little. It was a fighter plane. The sides of the plane were literally rippled with large bullet holes. The whole tail end of the plane was massively crushed, and the cockpit was smashed. Also, some signs showed that it might have been on fire. He wondered what happened to the person who flew it. Soon he got tired and weak and went to lie in the snow. Sometimes, starting from the day he first woke up, he would have strange and unpleasant feelings like he had right now. It was a horrible, depressing feeling of weakness and sorrow. Often he would think it was the dark side of him, the side that made him think that he was not going to make it, the side that put him into guilt and sadness. At that moment he thought how he was going to get food, and how he was going to ever survive in this vast wilderness. He thought of eating shrubbery and plants or the frozen snow, but he was afraid that it might make him sick. But then again, if there was nothing else to eat, then I guess I'll have to. He also thought, what happened to him and where was he? Did he have a family? That night, he found some canned food and a can opener in the plane. He thought he could survive on it until it ran out, and then he would think of something. That night, he felt the strangest of it all. There he lay, his eyes fixed on the black sky, the stars twinkling above him as the forest slowly fell asleep. Mrs. Kearns lay in her bed, her mind still suffering from the tragic blow. Somehow, in some strange way, she didn't believe the commander. Deep inside her, she knew somewhere her husband was out there. She didn't tell the 2 kids about it. She really didn't want to break the news to them. She knew it would be more of a blow to them than to her. So many things happened in those 2 months while her husband was away on his flight mission. One of the kids, Gary, 18, had passed one of his most important exams and won a scholarship to train to be a surgeon. Benjamin, 25, had just opened a store. How proud their father would have been. She could imagine him arriving, the 2 boys thrilled to see him. If he wasn't shot down, he might have been back in only a few days. She knew that she must tell the boys in a few days' time, although she feared that most. The next morning he had to move on. It was that strong sense of his. So after a long rest he got up weakly and staggered over to the plain, taking a few cans of food, and headed towards the forest. It was a very slow and time-consuming pace because he had to rest frequently. The large forest got thicker and thicker as he moved on. As he climbed through the thick tangle, he often got a lot of scrapes and bruises because of the harsh, rough bark and sharp thorns. It was quite a nice forest with pine trees swaying in the cool, fresh air. The long days went on and he remained to trudge through the thick forest until one day. It was when he was taking out a can of food to eat when he saw a small notebook fell from beneath the can. He figured he had not seen it when he had packed the cans. Slowly he opened the partially torn, neglected yellow notebook. In the front there was a name sloppily scribbled. He looked at it closer and he could barely read the fast writing. It read, William T. Kearns, 11/28/42. Smooth flight, weather warm and sunny, 45 degrees. I'm very anxious to get home and see my family. I wonder how those two boys are doing. I'm now flying home from one of my missions. Flying over Russian territory. No damage. Everything's fine. He looked at those last two words with strangeness and terror. He really wondered what happened to the pilot, because it must have not been nice. He slowly closed the notebook, still looking at the front cover. Then a tear ran down his cheek. Everything was so strange and weird. At that moment he felt trapped in this eerie world of confusion. That morning she awoke with a terrible headache. She was sore and tired. Then she realized. The kids. How was she going to tell them? Raindrops rolled down the window and gray covered the sky. She walked into Benjamin's room and he was getting ready for work. Ben, take the day off today. But Mom, I've got a big... Take the day off, Ben. Sit on the couch, Mom. Sit on the couch in the living room. I'll get Gary. She walked into Gary's room. Gary, you're not going to work today. Come in the living room right now. Did I do anything wrong? No, just come. The two boys sat gloomily on the couch, both very disappointed. Especially Ben. Friday was the day that he usually earned the most money, and he hated to miss it. Mrs. Kearns sat down on the couch and let out a long sigh. Boys, I have some very tragic news to tell you. Your father was shot down by some enemy airplanes 2 days ago. The boys burst into tears. She felt so horrible seeing them cry. She walked out of the room into her bedroom. She closed her eyes and crumpled her face into the soft pillow and began to cry. That day she just decided to make cookies for the boys, but they wouldn't take them. She went back to the kitchen and sat down on one of the chairs. She covered her face with her hands and thought. She thought about when the boys were only little kids, Gary 3 and Ben only 10. She could remember when their father came home so handsome and tall, the two kids running over and hugging him. How nice those days were. I suppose Gary will have to go back to school, but he won't like it. I'll have to tell his teacher about it if he acts a little strange or anything, she thought to herself. The wind was cold and bitter. The hail shot down like bullets from the sky. Desperately, he clung to the branches of the pine trees as the raging blizzard blew through the forest. His face was red and swollen with extreme frostbite. His hands were as stiff as icicles. With all his strength, he dived forward towards the ground as the blizzard got stronger and stronger. His fingers dug into the frozen soil as he clung for his life. The commander stalked back and forth in his office as one of his pilots sat down waiting. "Are you sure you saw him, McKinley?" the commander said as he lit a cigar. "As clear as a bird, sir. Saw him, I did. Shot down and his plane was on fire. Then I saw him jump right out of the plane. No parachute or nothing, just jumped right out. Barely made it past those Russian planes myself." "I see," said the commander, sitting down in his chair. "Well, he was one of our very best pilots. I'm very sorry to lose him." The commander paused. "You may be excused now, McKinley." "Thank you, sir." McKinley left. The commander laid back and let out a long sigh. Weakly, he got up, but then he fell down again. His shirt and pants were ripped and torn. The canned food was running out. Suddenly, two strong teeth dug into his flesh. Blood rapidly squirted out, running down his arm. He quickly turned around, and the snake sped away. He launched forward, grabbing the snake with his hands. The snake suddenly yanked away, biting him with his deadly fangs. He lunged forward again, this time digging his nails into the snake's mad head. He looked around and then found a large, sharp rock. He grabbed the snake and smashed the rock against its head. At first the snake was frozen stiff, its body up like a cobra's, and then it sank to the ground. When he had run out of the canned food, he tried his best to skin the snake and made a fire and cooked it and ate it. The snake didn't taste very good, but at least he had some food. He was lucky the snake wasn't poisonous. He wrapped his hands tight in leaves, and it slowly healed. One day a clearing appeared while I was walking through the forest. 2 guards stood nearby. Suddenly one of the 2 guards saw him. They chased after him, their machine guns held tightly in their hands. He ran for his life, his weak legs carrying him as fast as he could go. Suddenly he tripped over Vine. He flew forward, hitting the ground, and then all went black. He woke up sore and stiffed. He realized that he was lying down on cold, hard cement. He looked up and saw the hard cement. Suddenly he realized he was in a prison cell. He sat down solemnly and wondered what happened to him. Then he remembered the guards chasing him. Then a man walked over to his cell. He had an evil smile about him. He wore a black coat and blue pants. He walked up to the bars. "I thought you would wake up," he said. "Now, will you be kind enough to tell me what you were doing snooping around?" "I don't remember anything. That one day I woke up in the snowbank." "You liar! Jackson! Jackson, get over here!" A strong, muscular man with practically a blank face rushed over beside the other man. "Now remember that this man gets half the amount of food that the other prisoners get. And also, take him to the torture chamber." The big, muscular man, Jackson, opened the cell and yanked him off the ground and pushed him out of the cell into the torture chamber. Each night, Mrs. Kearns lay in the bed thinking about her husband. So many weeks had gone by that she was losing hope that he was even alive. Now the boys ever hardly mentioned their father. If anybody asked about their father, they would go silent and walk away. The boys thought that their father was not a thing to be talked about. The months slowly passed. He got sick frequently, from only having half as much food as he should have gotten. He was sent to the torture chamber more than the other prisoners, too. He was sent to the chamber once a week. 7 years went by, and he was losing hope of them ever letting him out. One day the commander of the prison walked over to his cell. "You're free," he said. "We found your airplane. In the cockpit we found your ID and picture. We also found your parachute burned up in the plane. You must have jumped out and survived." Thoughts raced through his mind. He flew an airplane? "You're free," the commander repeated as he opened the cell. "And I suggest you better clear out of this territory as soon as possible." He was let free and he was on his own again. He walked through the forest for 10 days and finally reached a small, friendly town, and he was able to sneak into it. There he saw a small plane and a runway. He went into a little hut-like place near the runway. Inside there was a man sitting behind a desk. "Do you think you could fly me home in that plane?" "For how much?" I don't have no money." "Well, man, I tell you what, since you look like a real poor man and you don't have any money, I'll do you a favor. I'll fly you home with no charge." "Where are you going?" He hadn't realized where he was going. Then suddenly he remembered by some strange miracle. He suddenly remembered he had 2 kids and a wife. It was all so strange. He told the man where he lived. Then the 2 men went to the airplane. The airplane started up and he chose a seat for himself. Then tears filled his blue eyes. He was going home.